Well, good morning, everybody. Hello, 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 hello. I hope everybody's having a great day so far. Um, just give me a great. See, you guys already know what I'm going to ask you. Thumbs up. I just want to make sure you can hear me. Thank you, thank you. Love to see those emojis. They always motivate me. The art of negotiating is such an important course today. And I hope you have questions. So at the end of our session, as we always do, I'll open it up for questions. And, your questions don't have to be related 100% to this course. I'd like to keep it into the negotiating area. So, if you've had a problem on a listing appointment or on an offer presentation and you're trying to figure out, what you did wrong or what you could have done better or anything like that, make sure you ask those questions because this is your time. Okay, so let's begin and look forward to our time as always. Okay, so negotiating, everything in life, as I always say, is one big negotiating table. I'm going to turn my camera off because it makes the image larger, and I'll turn it back on at the end. So negotiating is I love this quote. Negotiating is letting the other side have your way. I love that. When I first read it, I said, oh, that's so good. Negotiating is letting the other side have your way. Life couldn't be better if you could have improved your negotiating. It's about the last three words that someone just said to you. We'll talk about that today, and it'll make more sense later. Don't be in a hurry to lay out your cards in the beginning. The goal is to make the other side say yes, but say it's not getting the other side rather to say yes, but getting the other side to agree with you. Okay, so remember that. And as I say, we're going to go through a lot today. So always remember, it's not what you say, but how you say what you say and the tone of voice that you use when you say it. Can't tell you how important this statement is. That it's not what you say, but how you say what you say and your tone of voice. Tone of voice is so important. And as I say, we'll investigate all that in more detail today. There's what I called 4 pillars of influence. And one, of course, is building trust. That is the single most important thing to anybody who's doing business and sales with a client, is building trust. Trust is that bridge that connects people. If someone trusts you, they're going to open up to you. They're going to, reveal their worries, their fears, their problems when they trust you. It's also to create alignment. In other words, what you're really trying to do is create a situation where people are sort of on the same track, if you will. And it's also, momentum, very important. Momentum is the engine that gets people behind you. So, it's important to get people on board. We'll, again, look at some of those things. And of course, getting people to believe in you. That starts with you believing in yourself, by the way. You can't get anybody to believe in you if you yourself don't believe in yourself. So it starts with you believing in you, and of course, trying to inspire others to believe in you. Belief is the fuel that keeps others moving together with you forward, and so those are the 4 pillars of influence. So very important. Oh, what did I just do there? Oh, they added a new button. Oh my God. What did I do here? Sorry. This is a new system here. They just added a new button and I just hit it for the first time. This one was not there before. Anyways, okay. So that's where I want to be. So the big negotiating mistakes that we're going to talk about, trying to win the negotiations. It's not about winning. It's about getting people to agree. Focusing on price. We're going to talk about that. giving ultimatums. I was with them last night till 3 o'clock in the morning. I tell you, if you sign it back, I'll lose them. There's no way they're going to pay anymore. It's again, giving ultimatums, getting emotional. Oh, big one, big one. You ever seen an angry realtor? You ever seen an upset realtor? Ever seen a disappointed realtor? Ever seen a frustrated realtor? All of those things, I bet you have. We do not want you to become emotional when you're negotiating, reacting to the offer. Again, you're going to get all kinds of offers in your lifetime. And the last thing you want to do is you, the real estate agent, reacting to the offer. You don't want to be doing that. The client is one thing. You don't have control over their emotions. You have control over your own, and we'll talk about that, how to be able to make people, how to be able to calm people down, kind of thing. Getting worried about what they will think. That's a biggie. People worrying about, oh, if I go in with this offer, they're going to be upset with me. They're, all of that kind of stuff. Not being prepared, focusing on your needs and taking control, or not taking control. It's both, actually. So let's do a deeper dive. Bringing anger to a negotiation is like throwing a bomb into a process. So absolutely no way you should be angry, or at least display any anger. Managing your counterpart's emotions. We're talking about here, obviously, your client's emotions and knowing how to manage them. And we will talk about that as well. When a negotiation concludes too quickly, participants tend to feel dissatisfied. That is very true. That's if someone feels that they've given in too quickly and they've agreed with you too quickly, it sometimes can make them feel they made a mistake. You pushed them too hard. You overpowered them. And that can make someone change their mind and, cold feet, as we've heard. So very important that you allow time to happen and not to rush people, because it really is going to be a problem if you do that. Be considerate. Don't let there is no sound. Well, it must be on your side, whoever's telling me there's no sound. Because I've already asked everybody, does everybody have sound? And most of you said there is. So at least I'm assuming so. Be considerate. Don't let your excitement make your counterpart feel that he lost. It should never be that they feel like they lost. Every client that you deal with should always feel like they've won. And that is, when you're trying to get a buyer to come up, that they feel, quite frankly, they feel sometimes when they're going up that they've lost. And when a seller comes down in price, they obviously feel like they've lost. So knowing how to deal with that, we'll talk about that today. So don't let excitement make your counterpart feel like they've lost. So the last thing you want to do is get excited and be happy when they're thinking they made a mistake. Very important to make sure that that doesn't happen. So research is everything. If you're working with another real estate agent, research them to get an insight, if you can, into their negotiating tactics. As a matter of fact, here's what I used to do, just to give you an idea. When I had a buyer looking for any kind of whatever property, and I was out there looking around, and then, like anybody else, you go into a house and you say, wow, this, I believe, is the house. I really think they're going to love this house. So when you get the feeling after you've looked at a property, either, gone to inspect it yourself or looked at it online, and you feel like this might be the one, the first thing I used to do is call the other agent, the listing agent. I'm assuming in this case, you're the buyer's agent. I would call the listing agent and say, look, I'm going to show your property. And I think, it's a property that might be suitable for my client. And I just have a few questions. And my first question is always, what is their policy on offer presentations and allowing you, the real estate buyer's agent, to be present on the offer presentation? Okay. Now, first of all, let me make a couple of points very clear. Okay. And it's one of the biggest problems that I think are facing real estate people today. Most real estate agents, when they're working with buyers, assume that they should just, deliver the offer to the listing agent and that the listing agent present it without you. Well, there's several things that you need to understand about that. First of all, the MLS rules and regulations. When I hired an agent, it was one of the first things I used to say to them. You got to read these rules and regulations. You don't need to memorize them, but at least know them. Understand where they are. Have a copy when the board gives you a copy of those. The MLS rules and regulations are online in the back end that you can find them, kind of thing, in the Strata system. But the point is, you want to know that when when you get an offer as a buyer's agent to the listing agent has an obligation to allow you to be present on the offer presentation, unless you have a right to be there, unless the seller's agent, in other words, the listing agent, has signed a form. I can never remember what the name of that form is, but they've signed a form that says they do not want any other agent present at the negotiations other than their own listing agent. There's actually a form that a seller has to sign, and the listing agent must make that notation on the MLS listing, and a copy of that needs to be in the file, the listing broker's file. So if they don't have it noted on the MLS listing that all offers presented only through the listing agent, the X form has been signed, then understand that they are in violation of the MLS rules and regulations. And MLS rules and regulations are not only for you, it's for everybody in the real estate industry, in the Toronto, that's registered with the Toronto Real Estate Board. It's everybody. And those are the MLS rules and regulations, unless they've changed them. And, I don't believe they have in this regard, that you do have permission to attend. So you want to be there. You want to be there, and you should be allowed to be there. And as I say, know the MLS rules and regulations. So that was the first question I had before I even showed the property. I wanted them to know that I wanted to find out what is their policy regarding the presenting of offers and having the buyer's agent be able to also be available at the offer presentations. And if they say, no, we want you to just fax the offer over, or, bring the offer over, drop it off at our office, and we'll go and present it. And I want to make sure you understand that those are not the MLS rules. So if they said that to me, I prefer to do the presentation myself. If that's what the listing agent says to you, just say, I notice on the MLS listing, there's no, you haven't registered or recorded that all offers must be presented through you only, that you've got the form, whatever that number of the name of that form is. Hopefully somebody in here can give me the name of that form. I'm not good at remembering these names. I don't use them as often as you guys do. So anyways, I would want to know, why didn't you have the form signed by your seller? Because it's a rule. It's an MLS rule. And, do you have a copy of it? And maybe it's just not recorded on the listing. Can you email me a copy of it? Okay. Because you have to let your buyer know, especially if your buyer has signed a buyer agency with you. If a buyer has signed a buyer agency with you and you can't be present on the offer presentation, then you're not representing them. You can't represent them because you're not even allowed to be at the presentation. So that needs to be addressed. And I don't get into into any arguments with them. I'm not looking to create any problem with the listing agent. I always believe, be professional, be courteous, be respectful at all times, even if they're not courteous and not respectful. Don't lower yourself to their standard. Raise your standards rather than lower them to at their level if they're giving you a difficult time. So I would always say, if they say, well, then I would ask, why is it not mentioned on the listing. And they say, well, we have a copy of the form that's signed. Okay, great. Do you mind sending that to me? Because I would like to let my buyers know that I'm not able to represent them at the presentation. And if they send it to you, great. There's nothing you can do. You have to have the offer presented through them. But if they don't have it, that means you have the right to be there. And here's how I address with that. If they say, well, no, this is just what my seller has said to me. Remember, what's one of the first things we learned in real estate? Everything in real estate must be in writing. You know that. They know that. They're just trying because they don't want you there. And there's reasons why other agents don't want you there. We'll come back to that. Oh, it's Form 244. Is that what you said? I saw that flash up on my screen. Whoever put it up there. Yes, thank you very much. There you go. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to write it down. I appreciate your help. I appreciate it. Thank you. So it's Form 244. So if they haven't signed that, then I'm going to say this to them. I'm going to say, listen, you know you're supposed to have the Form 244 signed. Is there a reason why it's not been done? Well, he told me in person that he doesn't want anybody else there. Well, then you need to get that form signed and get it to me, because then I can tell my buyer, because I might be getting an offer on this. In fact, okay, if you think that this is a buyer that really would like this house, I might be, I need to know. And then I would ask another question to the listing agent. Again, I'm doing this, in a good tone of voice. I'm not aggressive. I'm being professional. I say, do you mind if I ask you, why is it that you don't want the buyer's agent there? Is there a reason that you have, other than you're telling me that the seller doesn't want you? If the seller doesn't want you and he signed the form, no problem. But if he didn't sign it, then it's a decision you're making on your own. Why? What is it that you're worried about? And what do you think most agents will say? Most agents will say they've had a lot of problem with other agents upsetting their seller. Something to that effect is what they're going to say. And I always say, listen, I can guarantee you that your seller is never going to be upset with anything I say. Believe me, I'm not in the business of upsetting anyone, and I'm not going to upset your seller. I will give you time alone with your seller. All I want, Mr. Agent, is to have an opportunity to be present at the table when the offer is negotiated, to be able to explain my buyer's position, answer any questions that your seller might have regarding my buyers, and then I'll give you time alone with your client. If I'll go to my car, I'll wait in the basement, whatever you want, but I will give you time alone with your client. That's what I say to them. But you have a right to be there unless they've signed this form. So make sure you research your listing agent, and make a call to them. And again, always remember, be respectful, be courteous, be professional. That is the most important thing. What you're really looking for is to find out, what kind of agent am I working with? Now, here's another reason why I want you to be there. Okay, just so you understand, how do you know he or she is even the one who's going to present the offer is even the listing agent? Maybe the listing agent is on vacation and they've asked somebody else to fill in for them. Maybe the listing agent is a brand new agent and this is their very first offer. When you do this, you're actually handing your offer over to who you don't even know. I'm assuming in this case, the listing agent, and you're hoping that they know what they're doing. And let me tell you, there's as big a chance that they don't know what they're doing. As a matter of fact, a bigger chance that they don't know what they're doing and may hurt the negotiation process than help you. And that's why I say you have a right to be there. And when you're there, you're not going to be assertive or aggressive in any way. Obviously, you're not going to upset the listing agent or the selling agent. We'll talk about that in more detail. But I want to make sure we covered that part because it's very important. Here are what I call the 3 keys to negotiating. Never let the offer die. I mean, what you're really trying to do is keep it alive. Keep it alive. And a lot of people, let me ask this question. How many of you have ever had this happen? If you've been in the business a long enough period of time and have negotiated enough, you may have had this happen. This has happened to me a few times in my career. Have you ever, working with a buyer now for a moment, got an offer, presented the offer, and the offer was signed back by the seller. You go back to the buyer. The buyer is, you try everything you possibly can, you can't get them up. And rather than just say, die, okay, offer, that's it. You know, if you can even get them up $500, if you know what I mean, take whatever you can get. I have gone back with exactly the same offer as I had the first time, the second time with the same offer. How many have ever done that? Gone back a second time with the same price as you had the first time? Anybody have ever done that? Little show a thumbs up if it's ever happened to you. Never happened to anybody. Okay. Well, let me tell you, it's happened to me a few times in my career where I've gone back with exactly the same offer as I did the first time. And I've actually, on one occasion, only one occasion, I actually made a deal. Now, because don't we all know how quickly life can change? Life can change in the blink of an eye. You know that. I mean, let's go back to March of last year, February of last year. Everybody was having fun, and then bingo, COVID-19 hits. And look what has happened. And that happened. Didn't it feel like it happened overnight? I mean, literally. So what I'm saying, life can change for someone in the blink of an eye. You cannot think that because yesterday they did this, that today they will do the same. That's not 100% true. It's true a lot of times. Yes, but it's not true all of the time. Go back with anything you possibly can. Always go back. Always go back. And if they once again say, why are you coming back with the same price? I say, I respect your question. Let me say to you, people have sometimes made it, some things have happened in their life where they've changed their minds. I wanted to give you another opportunity. And Mr. Seller, I thought maybe if we came back this time again, that maybe you'd reconsider. And that was what I've said. And a few times it didn't work, but one time it did. And that one time was a wonderful day for all of us. The seller was happy. The buyer was happy. So always never let the offer die. When it's dead, but keep it alive. Leave your ego at home. This is not about you being the smartest real estate agent. This is not about you being, the king or queen at the table. Leave your ego at home. It is not about you. It's about them. It's about your buyer. It's about the seller. It's not about you. Leave your emotions at home. As I say, don't show emotions at the table. What you want to be is professional. You want to be cool. You want to be calm. You want to be collected, and you want to have done your homework and know what you're going to do. In other words, have a plan of how this presentation is going to go. So, and we'll talk about that. So leave your emotions at home. Nothing worse than an upset realtor. Breaking the ice. When we go into an offer presentation, when we meet buyers, when we meet sellers, we're meeting people that don't know us, and you don't know them and they don't know you. And here you are. I mean, think about it. This is why I'm so impressed, and why I think real estate people are very, very, very special. Because when you think about it, the most money that somebody has, usually the largest investment someone has is their home. And here you are going into somebody's home that they've owned for however long, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and you are trying to get them to sign on the dotted line. And that requires a great deal of trust. So remember, one of the most important things is to be able to break the ice with people and know how to make people feel relaxed with you. It's all about the art of conversation. We're going to talk about that. It's about looking to find common ground. Always look for something that you can talk about, that's going to maybe break the ice with you and make people feel comfortable. Maybe he's a golfer and you're a golfer. Maybe they're a tennis player and you're a tennis player. Maybe you're both hockey fans, and today's not a good day to be a hockey fan. The Leafs lost. No, terrible. There are many cultural differences. We meet all kinds of people from every part of the world, and it doesn't matter where you come from or where they come from. One thing is true for all. Sellers want the highest price and buyers want the lowest price. It doesn't matter what language you speak. The most important thing is to always be open-minded and never allow any kind of judgment. You are not to judge anything. Okay, so it's about making people feel comfortable with you. It's about small talk. Some people don't want a lot of small talk. Cut to the chase, get to the bottom line. They don't want a lot of small talk. So you have to know how to be able to do that. There's an art to that. It never goes out of style, trying to build relationships and, trying to make people feel uncomfortable, feeling comfortable rather. It never goes out of style when you're trying to work with people and make people feel comfortable. Negotiating better, you'll negotiate better when we get along. I can't tell you how many times I heard a realtor say, well, I was told the seller and the buyer shouldn't like each other. And that is completely wrong. How many of you have ever had a client where there's been a multiple offer and they've actually accepted an offer that was a little bit less than another offer because they really liked the client? They loved, they had a connection with that client and they wanted to sell it to that person. I'm sure if you've been in the business long enough, have had an experience of that, because that is not uncommon, actually. Be careful not to overdo it. In other words, if you're using small talk, to try and get to know someone and make them feel comfortable, be careful. You can go too far. You got to know when to small talk and when not to small talk. And again, we'll talk more about those. Now, remember, there's two communication styles. One is communicating through statements, and the other is communicating by asking questions. The one thing that I hope by now you have learned, if not, let me be the first one to make it very clear to you. Closing is learning to question. In sales, one of the most important things is knowing how to question and making people feel comfortable when you're questioning them. Not an interrogation, but questioning is the key to overcoming objections. And statements is completely different. Whenever you make a statement, I want to make sure you understand, and I'm hoping the next slide is the one that I'm thinking it's going to be to answer this. Yes, it is. The difference between negotiating versus debate. When you make a statement, I used to hear that over and over and over and over again. Closing is learning to ask questions. And I can't tell you how many times I heard that in my real estate career. And one day I went to a seminar, and this is why I love going to seminars. This was a seminar that I went to, and I can tell you that subject came up again, that closing is learning to ask questions. And here is why I believe you got to go. I love going to seminars, is because you might hear the same thing over and over and over and over again, but all of a sudden somebody says it, but they say it in a different way and they add a little bit to it, and bingo, you get an aha moment. This was my biggest aha moment in my career when I was fairly new. I was maybe 2 years in the business when I went to this seminar. There was about 1,000 people there. And that's what he said. And he said, let me tell you why closing is learning to ask questions. He said, every time you make a statement, you automatically open the floor up for a debate. And he said, what's going on when you're sitting across the table from a seller trying to get them to sign a listing with you, or a buyer trying to get an offer signed, or negotiating the offer with the buyer and seller? What's going on? Are you asking questions or are you making statements? He said, every time you make a statement, it's potentially a debate. I'll give you a simple example. He said, this is what he said. He said, remember, there's 1,000 people in here. He said, it's hot in here. Statement. And he said, now be truthful, folks. How many of you don't find it hot in here? Show of hands, he asked. And a bunch of people put up their hands. They're not hot. He said, so you see, He said, here we have now a potential disagreement. I'm saying it's hot in here. And when I say it's hot in here, it's like me, I'm not comfortable. Turn the temperature down. It's too hot. Well, there's a bunch of people, so you saw the hands in this room, that don't think it's hot in here. How many think it's cold in here? And a bunch of people put their hand up. And he said, so you see, every time you make a statement, you potentially open the floor up for a debate. Now he said, now let me ask you this. Let me put it this way. How many of you find it hot in here? You see, completely different when I say it's hot in here. When you say that, it's turn the temperature down because I'm too hot. Well, there's a bunch of people who are cold. You're going to turn the temperature down. They're going to be even more cold. You see what I mean? You got a problem. Now, in a negotiation, it should always be win-win. In a debate, they definitely want a winner and a loser. You watch any political debate, you know exactly what I mean. Somebody wants the other one to lose. No question. In negotiation, it should never be win-lose. It's got to be win-win. The buyer has to believe they're winning. The seller has to believe they're winning. And that is one of the most important things you always need to remember. And we'll talk about how to make sure that happens. Now, in a debate, it's very adversarial. You know, it can get quite heated. It can get quite heated. Now, in a debate, adversarial is commonplace. In negotiations, it's about cooperation. It's about finding cooperation. For example, when I say always make sure, if they do allow you to be present at the negotiating table and you're the buyer's agent, I used to say the listing agent, of course, would go through the whole offer and they'd explain it. And then after they've explained it, even if I didn't like the way they explained it, it didn't matter to me. That's the way they did it. I kept my mouth shut. And then once he or she explained it, I then said, I'd look at the listing agent and I'd say, do you mind if I say a few things? And they'd look at me and say, oh, that's fine. And then I'd look at the seller and I say, look, Mr. Seller, I know you have a good agent here. I know they're doing the best for you. I know they're doing, wanting to make sure they protect your interests. And I want you to understand, I feel the same way. And I appreciate your agent. You see, I'm always complimenting the agent. If I compliment you, he's doing a good job. She's doing a good job. I know they have your best interests at heart. So do I, actually. You know, and then you can say what you want to say. But you see, that's cooperation. That's not adversarial. And that's why I'm saying very important. Now, in a debate, it's inflexible. My way or the highway. You know, you sign it back, I'll lose them. Mr. Seller, I want you to know I'm going to do my absolute best for you. Just like your own agent is trying to do the absolute best for you, I want you to know I'm going to do the best for you as well. Okay? I hope I can get them to agree to your price. However, okay, ask a question. Now, my point here is there's a big difference between my way or the highway versus here's what I'm hoping. Would you consider, is there a possibility? Have you thought, you know, what if? You see what I'm saying? That's where you're trying to get some flexibility. Also remember, in a debate, there are moderators. There are, there's definitely referees, okay, if you will. In a negotiation, we're not moderators. We're not. The buyer's agent the buyer's agent wants their buyer to get the house. The seller wants to sell his house. We're just trying to bring two minds together. Okay. So you're not a referee here. Our job is to bring a meeting of the minds, and we're trying to find that place that we can do that. And that has to be coming through all the time. In other words, you have to show your client, whether it's the buyer or the seller or both. If you're at the offer presentation, you always have to show them that their interests are your concern also. Not my buyer wants this, period. And it's not that you're trying to give in and you're not trying to represent your seller or your buyer, depending on which side you're on. My point is that cooperation, and showing them that you're not a third party, you're not a referee, you're just, my buyer wants to buy this house. They love this house. They've looked at about 30 houses, and this is the first offer we've been able to generate from them. They were very impressed with the renovations you've done. They were very impressed with the neighborhood and your landscaping, whatever it is. They love the property. So I believe I have the right client for you. So no third parties. In a debate, there are no concessions. In a negotiations, there are concessions. My way or the highway in a debate. Again, in negotiations, suppose that. What if? Would you consider? I'm glad you brought that up. Have you ever thought? You see, when you do that and then ask your question, it makes such a difference. Here's what you're trying to do. You are trying to get people, they have a price in their mind. They have a price etched in their mind. It's ingrained in their mind, the buyer and the seller. And your job, our job as real estate professionals, is to help them possibly reconsider their price, because maybe their price isn't the right price. And it could be your buyer who isn't the right price. It could be the seller who isn't the right price. But in today's market, is there such a thing? Is there such a thing as the right price? No, not right now. That's why you're seeing houses sell for all these weird prices. So very important to understand the difference between making a statement and asking questions. The last point I want to make is personal needs versus others' needs. In other words, don't sit at the table when you're negotiating, trying to get a listing signed, trying to get an offer signed. Don't sit there thinking about, oh my God, I need a deal. I need this deal. Listen, we all have been in the situation where we need this deal. Believe me, there's none of us who, unless you're a very wealthy person, well, good for you. But most real estate people, when they certainly come into this business, don't fit into that category, the majority. So if they see dollar signs in your eyes, the buyer, the seller, believe me, they are going to know. It's obvious. And when they see dollar signs in your eyes, all you're interested in is your commission. That's what they think. You got to make them realize, listen, these buyers, these sellers kind of thing, it's what's important to them. It's not what's important to you. When you always consider them first and let them see that and feel that emotion that you believe they're first, it makes all the difference in the world. So remember, negotiation and debate are two different things completely. You should not go into a negotiation thinking that you've got to have a debate. It's my way or the highway. It's this price or no price, if you know what I mean. They're right, you're wrong. It should never, ever be that way. It's trying to find that common ground, and you do that through positive reinforcement and comments. Very important to remember that. Okay, because that'll make all the difference in the world. So, as we say, asking questions versus making statements. A question could be asking about a new topic. Listen, there's nothing wrong with making a statement. I used to use what I call a statement question technique, and I'll show you what I mean by that. But a question is very important. It's maybe you want to start a new topic or follow up on something. It's about probing. Questions are good because it probes. It helps you learn. It helps you get more information. And it gets the other person telling you what they want by asking questions. So asking for new information, asking for further information. And there's all different types of questions. As a matter of fact, I have a course on questioning, open-ended questions, closed questions. I have a whole course on it that maybe I should redo again. It's been a while since I've done that one. A statement, of course, might be providing information, an opinion, a comment, sharing something. Nothing wrong with getting someone's opinion, okay? As a matter of fact, you want the seller's opinion. You want the buyer's opinion. Observations, comments, sharing something. So both are essential, but it's how you put them together. The statement and a question. How do you put them together? Because it's all about the art of communication. Remember that. It's all about the art of communication. So making statements, remember, every time you make a statement, you are potentially starting a debate. And what is the one thing in sales? It's probably the oldest line in sales, the oldest line. And that oldest line is the customer is always right. It's not the oldest line in sales. And you know what? It's true. Whether we like it or not, whether they're wrong or not, the customer is always right. So that's why it's so important to ask questions and to get them to open up, because that way you get to learn about who they are, and it makes it much, much easier when they have something. You want to give them something to think about. Okay, so here's my statement question technique. I'm on a listing presentation. I'm just making this up. I'm trying to get them to sign the listing, and I've done the whole presentation, and I'm trying to get them to sign, and they look at me and they say, well, thank you very much, Gabrielle, but we really want to talk to our friend. We have a friend in the business. We'd like to talk to our friend. Now, I've heard all kinds of comments about this from other real estate agents. And I can't tell you how many real estate agents have said to me, well, if they have a friend, why am I here? Now, imagine me saying that to a client. Well, if you have a friend, why am I here? That's a question. Yes. But think about that question. That's almost like an insult to them. What, are you wasting my time? Why did you waste? That's like saying you're wasting my time. So no. I always say, look at it from this point. A statement. I'm glad you brought that up. You have a very good point. I understand how you feel. I can see why you would think that makes sense. Okay. So in other words, your statement should always agree with them, not agree, but understand and say, I understand why you feel that way. I can see why you might think that way. Yeah, I can see that. You're not agreeing with them. You're just saying, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I understand how you feel. You see, that's not agreeing with them, but you're not saying, well, why am I here? I can't even imagine saying that on a listing appointment or to a client. I can't even imagine saying that to him. It's to me, it's an insult when you say that. So, that when they say they have a friend in the business, say, Mr. Seller, the first thing I want you to remember when you hear an objection, let me give you a couple of pointers here. The first thing I want you to do when you hear an objection, always, always, always pause. Let me say that again, pause. So let me role play this out with you. Thank you very much for being here, Gabrielle. But we have a friend in real estate, and we would like to talk to them before we make a decision. Now, what I'm going to do after I heard that, I'm looking at them. My eyes are looking at them. And I'm sitting back in my chair. I'm relaxed. And I'm shaking my head in a yes direction. I'm shaking my head yes. I'm not saying anything. I'm shaking my head yes. And I'm pausing. I wanted you to feel what that pause feels like. Because let me tell you, they call it the silent close. And while I'm pausing, I'm shaking my head in a yes direction, but I'm looking like I'm thinking about something. Then I want you to do this when it's the first objection. Only do this on the first objection. And this is the first one. We have a friend in the business. I pause. I'm shaking my head in the yes direction. I look up and I say, if I can help you overcome your concern of your friend, is there any other reason why you would not be willing to list with me? I'm isolating. I'm saying, if I can help you with the concern you have with your friend, is there any other reason why you would not be willing to list with me? And listen to the tone of my voice. Listen how I softened my tone of voice. Let me tell you, folks, it is acting. I'm serious when I say this. You have to learn how to be able to fit the part of the client that's sitting across the table. So, and now I'm going to wait for a response. So I want you to do what they call isolate. So the objection, on every objection, you pause. On the first objection, you isolate. So you pause, then you isolate. And they look at you and say, no, that's really the big concern, my friend. And I'll pause again, and I'll look at them and pause, hold that pause. And the more experience you have, the longer you will hold the pause. When you're pausing, you're always shaking your head in a yes direction. You never no shake, ever. You only yes shake. And then I will look at them and I'll say, this is what I would say, okay? And I've always said it, and I would still say it today. I would say, have you read that book, Swimming with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten Alive? Have you read that book? And you're probably wondering, what the hell's that got to do with a friend in real estate? Trust me on this, folks. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to ask that question. And they look at me and they say, no. I said, well, it was written by an author called Harvey Mackay. He is one of the top business consultants in the world. And he helps Fortune 500 companies improve their business. And he's written many, many, many New York sellers on the New York Sellers bestseller book lists. And this book was on the bestsellers list for many, many, many weeks. He also wrote The 1 Minute Manager. I read that book, Mr. Seller, and I want to share something that I read in his book. It helped me many times when I was about having to make a big decision in business, and I wasn't sure the decision I should be making. And I always remember this quote. Here's what he said. Very, very, very amazing quote. He said, in business, make your decisions with your heart, and all you'll do is end up with heart disease. So you see, Mr. Seller, listing with your friend, you would be making a heartfelt decision. And I respect that. I have many good friends. I understand. However, let me ask this question. If you were unhappy with the service that they were providing you, how easy would it be for you to pick up the phone and say, I want a release from the listing, knowing he's a friend? Now think about this. If you were unhappy with what I was doing, how easy would it be for you to pick up the phone and say, I want a release. I'm not happy. You see, it would be very easy to do it if I wasn't doing a good job. But how easy would it be if it was your best friend? That's making a decision with your heart rather than your head between you and me and the walls. I'm not saying that to him. I'm saying that to you now. So my point is, that would be the first thing I would say about a friend in the business. So what I'm trying to show you here, and if he comes back and says, well, I can assure you my friend and I have a great relationship, and I could pick up the phone and ask for a release. Pause, shake your head in a yes direction, and say, that's great. I mean, it's wonderful that he's a lucky man to have you as a friend, on how much faith and trust you put in him. He's a lucky man. Mr. Seller, when you don't know how to overcome, how can you overcome a friend kind of thing, if you know what I mean? When you run out of things to say, you don't know how to overcome, you've tried everything you possibly can. What do I do now? I don't know what to do now. When you are in that situation, and we are all in that situation from time to time, I want you to look at them and I want you to say, Mr. Seller, I really respect how you feel about your friend. Totally. I know I can get this property sold. I know that I can get you the best price possible. There is no doubt in my mind. All I'm asking is for your cooperation. I'll be happy to talk to your friend for you if you're concerned, and let them know if they want to show the property, they have clients, I'll be fully cooperative with them. And I will always turn it back to, I know I can sell this property. I know I can get you the best price. All I need is your approval. All I need is your initial right here, and we can get to work for you. And shut up and ask for the order. Ask them to sign. Because do you know how many times I've gone to an offer presentation, a listing appointment with agents in the past, many years ago when I had my own company, when I was managing, and I'd go out and I'd do an analysis on what they were doing wrong. And I said, you know, we were sitting there for an hour and a half. Not once did you ask for the listing. You got it on a listing presentation. You got to be asking for the listing again and again and again throughout the evening or afternoon or whenever you're there, whatever time of day you're there. You have to be asking. You can't just wait for them to say, okay, I'm ready to list now. You have to ask. And that's, so you try to overcome the objection the best way you can. If you can't, by asking questions. If you can't overcome the objection, they keep coming back. And by the way, rule of three, if they keep coming back with, when you hear an objection, only one of three things can happen. Okay, let me explain to you what I mean by that. Only one of three things can happen. Number one, they agree and they sign and you made a deal. Number two, they disagree and they'll come up with the same objection. Only they'll change the wording. I bought it from him 20 years ago. We've been friends for 35 years. There's no way. You see, they'll come back, say the same thing, but in a different format. That's the second thing that can happen. The third thing that can happen is they abandon that objection, say, you know what? I don't like being pushed. I just like thinking about it. I don't like making quick decisions. I need to think about it. And now you've got a different objection. And that's good, because so long as a seller has a worry, fear, doubt, or a buyer has a worry, fear, doubt in their mind, you're never going to get them to sign whatever it is you're asking them to sign. So remember, that is the difference between a statement and a question and the statement question technique. Now, remember, there's only 4 yeses. Yes to the price on an offer presentation, obviously. A yes to the price, a yes to the terms, a yes to the extras, and a yes to the closing date. That's what you need to get. Your offer boils down to getting them to agree to 4 yeses. So the first thing I say to real estate agents when it comes, if you're a buyer's agent, let me just go back to this very quickly. When you're a buyer's agent, remember, if a listing says July 31st closing, there's a reason why it says July 31st. Ask the buyers, this listing agent, when you're on the phone with them, is there any flexibility with the closing date? If they say no, they bought another house, they gotta be, or they just say no, there's no way, that date is, they need that date. Then what you're trying to do is the offer negotiations begin when you prepare the offer. So I want to get as many of these 4 areas agreed upon when I prepare the offer. So I want to give them the closing date. If the listing says whatever it says, and it does not include the washer and dryer, and your buyer wants the washer and dryer, I always try to talk my clients out of appliances unless they're included on the listing. I always do, because bottom line, when people sign back offers, they sign back offers in thousands of dollars, either $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. They don't sign it back for $400. They sign it back for thousands. And the washer and dryer may not be worth $2,000. And they think, I paid $2,500 for them, I want $2,500 more. We know that a used washer and dryer, there's no way in God's green earth they're going to get $2,500 for it. They're lucky if they get $1,000 for it. They'll probably get more like $800, $400, $300 each. They're better off buying it on the side. And I tell them that. I say, you know what? You'll pay less if you go to them afterwards and try and negotiate with them. Let's not include them in the sale, because the most important thing is we get you the best price. Let's not include them. I would discourage. So I got a yes to the closing date. I get a yes on the extras. I only include what's on the listing. The terms, well, it's a condition on financing, but it's all cash. And every offer is going to be conditioned on financing pretty much today. And of course, a yes to the price or a no to the price. So I would love nothing more than to go in with 3 yeses, and the only area I have to negotiate is price. The fewer the changes, the better. I tell that when I'm on a listing appointment to my seller. When an offer comes in, I explain the kind of offer. If it's a first-time buyer's house, I explain the kind of buyer. I explain the kind of offer. I explain the conditions they can met. I explain the fewer the changes, the better. I explain that don't let time go. As soon as the offer comes in, we want to sign it back right away. We don't want to give the buyer too much time to think about it. The sooner we can get them to agree to you, the better. Okay, let's not make them wait, because while they're waiting, they're talking to friends, they're looking at other houses, they're changing their mind. If you know what I'm saying, that happens. So I do that on a listing appointment. So now when I come with the offer on an offer presentation and I'm the listing agent, they know all of this because I've already explained it. So I want to make sure you understand that. Very, very, very important. The fewer the changes, the better. Now, people patterns of negotiating. I want you to realize there's different people personalities. Think about who you are and think about the buyers and sellers that you meet. Here, emotional, called the verbalizers. This is when you see this client, well, let me come back to that in the next slides. So the emotional type, the verbalizer. The logical emotional type is called the convincer. The emotional logical type is called the reasonable. And the logical is called the rationalizer. So let's take a look at the different types. Verbalizer, emotional. I want you to think of the color red. Passion, fire, okay? These are very fiery personalities. They are usually, obviously, wear their emotions on their sleeve. They love it, they hate it. There's very little in between. They love to talk about things. They're extremely persuasive, these people. They prefer to talk about everything. These are people that can keep conversations going in every area. They don't like detail. The verbalizers, the emotional type, they don't like a lot of detail. As a matter of fact, show them a contract with a lot of fine print, show them a map, kind of thing, show them, a lot of detailed charts. They don't like that kind of thing. They deal with their gut. It's about gut instinct over logic, okay? They can easily suffer from buyer's remorse or seller's remorse. Too much detail tries to pin them down. They don't like it. They can skip from one topic to another topic. They love negotiating, by the way. They really do. As a matter of fact, they have a real sense of chaos. They love chaos. As a matter of fact, the more chaos there is, they feel more in control, believe it or not. They're high energy people, and chaos is usually very energetic. And that's why they like chaos. They work well under chaos, believe it or not. If there's ever a real bad situation, who do I want in my foxhole? If there's a war, I want the emotional type, because one thing for sure, the chaos, they can really get quite skilled when things are chaotic. That's when they turn on their engines to get things going. They can really get things going, these people. They need to feel good about what's going on, these verbalizers. If you've ever had someone screaming at an offer presentation or rip up an offer or throw an offer across the table, you definitely have a verbalizer, the emotional type. Convincers, logical, emotional. These are people that they value listening. If there's 4 people at the table, they'll listen to all the other people and they will be the last to speak. The emotional type, you'll have a hard time getting a word in because they like to hog the conversation. Convincers are last to speak. They value detail, but only if it's got to do with what we're talking about. So as somebody might want to get off topic, a convincer will bring it right back. Okay, let's get back to what we were talking about here. They want to keep it on topic. They use emotion and logic to their advantage. They negotiate using their people skills, because convincers are have really great people skills. They love negotiations, and it's exciting to them. It's a game. It's all about winning. These are people that are really love a challenge. The more difficult something is, the better it is. They set strong, identifiable goals. These people are very goal driven. They expect to succeed. They don't even consider failure. They expect to succeed. They negotiate. Negotiation, as I say, is like a game or a puzzle. And the convincer will evaluate others of what they say and then decide, which is why I said if there's 4 people at a table, convincers will want the others to go first, and then they'll evaluate what everybody's thinking. Rationalizers, these are my favorite clients, to be honest with you. Logical. This is the person who's what we call the silent deadly type. And a lot of people are very nervous about these people. They prefer to listen. They don't like emotional types. As a matter of fact, it really bothers them. So if you're an emotional realtor, this client you have to know how to deal with, because they are ones that don't like emotion. Okay. So that's why I say one of the hardest things in our business is to switch your personality to meet the person sitting across the table. You cannot be the emotional type when this guy is not, or person is not. This person loves detail. Their bottom line, cut to the chase, cut to the bottom line, detail, facts. It's all about that. Now, the emotional type, and if you're the emotional type, you hate facts. You don't like detail. But this person wants that. So your presentation, if it's a listing appointment, has to be completely different than if you're going to the emotional type. So very important that you understand the difference of the people. They're always prepared. This is the client that might be a man kind of thing. I know this is going to sound rather sexist because, but my point here, I apologize if it does, but the man says, show my wife, take her out, show her houses, and when you find what you want, I'll come out and take a look. Happens all the time. I'm sure it's happened to you at some point. And so now, you find the house you want, you show it to, you say to the husband, okay, your wife has found a house that she loves. We want to make an appointment to show it to you. Let me tell you, this guy comes with a notepad. This guy comes with a tape measure. This guy comes with, his pen, and he's going through tape measuring, all this kind of thing. He can be very intimidating. But this client does not like sales pitches. If he has to pay over asking, then don't try to rationalize that, the house was probably underpriced. Don't try and use any of these tricks with them, because they're highly intelligent people most of the time. Almost always, these are, very, very intelligent people. And they do their homework. This person will never, ever sign an offer right away. They'll want to think about it. They'll want to give me a day or so. I need to talk to a few people before I, decide what I want to do here. This client, you'll never get an offer signed right away. Okay. The logical type is the guy or the person that will expect order and expect clarity. So if they are going to have to pay over asking, here's the way you deal with that. Mr. Buyer, rather. Let me tell you, this is one of the best areas there is for schools. And I know that was very important. Your family is going to, and your children are going to be going to one of the best schools in all of Toronto or wherever it is. And, how long do you plan on, this is probably a home that you're going to live in for a very, very, very long time. Am I right? Your wife loves it. You might, in fact, be paying more than you want to pay right now. Don't say more than it's worth. You might have to pay more than you want to pay right now. But how long do you plan on being here? 10 years, 20 years? How long do you think? Well, let's look at what house prices were 10 years, 20 years ago, and what they're worth today. I mean, if you had to pay $10,000 more, $20,000 more 20 years ago for this house, would it have mattered today? No. So you see, what's the most important thing? Family, good school, happy wife, happy life, as they say. Of course, you're not going to say that, but you know what I mean. So my point is, don't try to say they underpriced it and use the rationalizing of it really is worth this money. You might be paying more than it's worth right now, or more than what you're willing to spend, rather. But here's what you got to think about. You're going to be here for many, many, many years. So the price that you pay today is not going to mean anything when the house is worth 50% more. Or like, look at what they were worth 20 years ago. What was this house worth 20 years ago? 20 years ago, this house was $200,000, and now it's $1.2 million. I mean, seriously. Did it matter that you paid $30,000 more 20 years ago? No, because it's worth $1.2 million today. Look how much money you've gained. That's the point I'm trying to make. Reasonable. This is the one, to be honest with you, that is the most difficult, in my opinion. The reasonable. They prefer to listen. They hate negotiating. They don't like anything about negotiating. Why do you have to, why do we have to go back and forth like this? Well, today there isn't a lot of back and forth, as we know. At some point, we'll be back to negotiating. Most of the time today, you pay full price or above. But this is a person that doesn't like to negotiate. They want you to just pay my price. As a matter of fact, people paying overpriced makes them worry. It makes them worry. That's what happened in the house that I'm in. I paid over asking, and they were worried about taking my offer because they thought maybe they won't close, maybe this, maybe that. They worried. It was a reasonable I was dealing with. There was no question. I knew that when I met them. They're afraid of making a bad decision. They don't like making decisions. There's always somebody else who they prefer to make decisions for them. But this is the client that will sell their house to the people that they like. It's not about the price, it's about the people. And this is a client that would sell their house for a little less to get this family to have it because they fell in love with the kids. It reminded them of their grandkids, if you follow what I mean. So this is all so important to understand the different personality types that you're dealing with. Now, negotiating, it's about positioning. Positioning is moving both parties closer together, little by little. Well, today, as we know, there isn't a lot of negotiating because your buyers are just forced to pay full price or above. I mean, bottom line. But as I say, it's going to come back one day. It'll be not a seller's market. It'll be a buyer's market maybe one day soon. And when that happens, negotiation will be very, very important. So, but that's what we mean by positioning, getting them up, getting them down, top price conscious, bottom price conscious, $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, bottom price conscious. What are the monthly payments? Monthly payments. There's a difference, okay, between top price conscious and bottom price conscious. Very important to understand that. What are they constantly saying? Okay, monthly payments or price, because that gives you an area to understand where you might be able to work. In other words, maybe you can get, if they want more money, maybe you can get the seller to take back a little bit of a mortgage to help them because they can't get a mortgage higher because remember, the property has to appraise. So in closing, remember, it's not what you say, but how you say what you say and the tone of your voice when you say it. Very, very important. It's not about you, it's about them. And it's about asking questions. It's not about making statements. It's always about asking questions. So I hope I've given you I've gone over a little bit. I apologize, but let's take a look. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me see if you have any questions for me. What is a silent webinar? I think you misunderstood me. I think what I was saying to you was the silent close is when, in other words, one of the strongest way to close somebody is when you say nothing. Okay, when you've asked a question, as I said, when we were talking about the friend in the business, and I was asking the question, how would you feel if the client that you were dealing with, your friend was not doing a good job? How easy would it be for you to say you're fired? That was the point. And I said, now you got to be silent and let the other person speak. And obviously, Servert was not happy. He said he wasn't impressed and he's leaving now. Well, sorry, it happens. Name of the book was Swimming with the Sharks, Without Getting Eaten Alive. That was the name of the book, by the way. And can you explain seller take back mortgage? Yeah, there was a time when it was all about when interest rates were 23%. Hope we'll never, ever, ever get to that point again. But I certainly lived through that. 1981, 82, 83, interest rates were like 23%. And they had risen to that. And nobody was willing to go out and arrange a mortgage with those rates. So it was always take back a mortgage, and the seller had to, in order to get his cash, he had to sell the mortgage. So basically, all it is asking the seller to be the mortgagor, okay, by taking back a mortgage. And then if they need the cash, you don't need to worry about that today, because today that would never be a way to be able to negotiate today because of the way the market is. Interest rates are so low, you don't need this. But if there is a problem with the mortgage not approving for the amount of money that the buyer needs, and the seller is willing to take back a mortgage, that might be a way that you can deal with the problem of not having enough money. Is the seller willing to take back a second mortgage in this case? That would be a possibility. But your first mortgage might have a problem with that, so it may not even work then. But we used the seller take back mortgage in the day when interest rates were very, very, very high. And then the money that was made in real estate back in those days was on the seller having to sell his mortgage. And a mortgage company would buy, just to give you an idea, $100,000 mortgage for $75,000, and the $25,000 less is where they made their profit. There was a lot of profit being made then, but that's when interest rates were very, very, very high. I hope that sort of answered your question. Let me see if there's any other questions anywhere else, because that's all I see here. And let me go here. Oh yeah. About being present in the offer presentation day. How about the multiple offer that they don't want anyone to know the price? Well, of course, can we still be present? Let me tell you, years and years and years that I've been in the business, lots and lots and lots of times I was present in multiple offer presentations, and there was 4 people. So here's what happens. If there's 4 people, 3 people, 10 people, doesn't matter how many, the offers are registered in order of are presented in order of registration. There's a form today that a lot of people use. Company X was first, company Y was second, company B was third. You get the idea, and you present that way. So you call in company X, nobody else is in the room. The others are waiting in their car out front, if you will. Okay, so they don't hear what's going on. And you, the listing agent, keep a copy of the offer there, or you make notes, price, terms, and so on. Okay, and then you send them in, and you go and bring in the next person. You do the same thing. Make notes, keep a copy, whatever they allow you to do. Sometimes the listing buyer's agent doesn't want you to keep a copy, so you'll make notes and you send them out. You do the same with every offer. They're all waiting outside while each offer is presented individually, and then you can bring them all in. And here's what you do. You have 2 options, only 2. You accept one the way it is because it's the best one, and your seller wants to accept that one. So you accept Mary's offer and the rest leave, or you accept John's offer and the rest leave. Or you send them all back and you say, he's not happy with the price and he's not happy with the terms, or whatever it is. You don't say, I got, this guy paid this guy paid that. You don't do any of that. You just say, he's not happy, go back and see if you can do any better. And you send them all back, because you don't know. You can't sign one back, because if you sign one back and they disagree, you've got 3 other people that might have agreed. So you either accept one or sign them, or just send them all back. You don't sign anything back, and make the appointment of when they can come back. So this is 3:00 in the afternoon. Can you come back at 8:00 tonight? Could you meet your client and be back by 8:00 tonight? Yes. Okay. And that's basically what you do. I hope that answers that. Now with the COVID situation, we know the offers are through email and mostly multiple as well. Does the same apply if the seller says, I don't want any agent to come to present? Well, obviously, under COVID situation, I understand what you mean. But I also know there's an awful lot of real estate people who are still presenting. They wear the mask. You know, a lot of people are vaccinated today. It's not as bad as it used to be. But if the seller does not want anybody there, there's no reason why they can't be outside in their car waiting, if you know what I'm saying. They can be there, but not physically in the house. Okay. Not a problem at all. So I understand that. But I would still say to real estate agents, if you can't be there, know what time the offer is being presented and tell them, I will be there. I'll be in my car in front of the property. If you have any questions that you want to ask me, I'll be there. And that's my best advice under circumstances. It is changing, though, because a lot of people are vaccinated today. They don't feel quite as uncomfortable as they did a year ago today. A lot has improved. And by the end of June, I think we'll all be in a much, much better position. Someone is thanking me. Do we have... Yes, this webinar is recorded and always recorded. Thanks a lot. How do you work on the buyer side? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. How do I work on the buyer side? I'm not sure what you mean by that. In other words, like, you have to be more specific. I'm sorry, Gurpreet, I'm not sure what you mean by that question. And when you don't know the price, how do you work with buyers when you don't know the price? Negotiating for the buyer side. Well, I mean, when you're negotiating for the buyer side, you know, it's a matter of going in and, you know, your job is to explain the buyer to them. Explain, you know, these are first-time buyers. They've looked at a lot of homes. They love your house. They've been saving for a long time. They, you know, they qualify, but, you know, they're not you have to explain who they are. You know, they've looked at a lot of houses. They love this house, but they can only afford so much, you know, in the case of these people, like anybody else. So it depends on what's happening. That's a pretty broad statement when you say, how do you negotiate on the buyer side? It depends on the offer. It depends on the price, and what you're negotiating. Are you 20,000 under price? Is it full price? You know, is it over asking? I mean, I don't know. It depends on, every offer is different. Every client is different. But the most important thing that you have to explain to them as the people want it. They love the property. They chose it for X reason. Why did they choose this house? They loved what you did to the rent in the renovations and so on. You know, that basically, you got to make sure you explain to the seller that these people really appreciated their property, and this is a good buyer. They qualify. I have qualified them. They have good jobs. You know, that you explain to them, these are people that you trust are going to be able, the deal will be able to go through. Because it's one thing to know they get an offer. It's another thing to know that the deal closes, you know, kind of thing. So you don't know what the price is now these days. You don't know what the price is now these days. Well, you know what the asking price is. You never know what every other offer is if it's a multiple offer situation. If that's what you're talking about, you never did know what the other offers were. So I'm not sure what you mean by that. Anyways, I hope I've helped. I hope I've given you some more insights into negotiating. I appreciate. Did I miss anything? Do we have a record of this webinar? Yes, it's recorded. You can go back and watch it again and again. I'm not seeing it. There's no sound. I can hear you now. How do you allow time in hot markets? How do you allow time in hot markets? Well, what I mean by time is, in a hot market, obviously things are going to sell. That's one of the biggest problems that some people have with a hot market, is the fact that there's no time. You know, you got to act fast. That's why a lot of agents in a hot market don't do well, but in a slower market do extremely well. So, you know, don't be concerned if you're not understanding about being quick today. That's the way the market is. In a hot market, you got to be fast, and therefore you have to tell your client, your buyer, listen, we're in a market where a market is very, very hot, and properties are selling very, very quickly. This is a market where you're not going to have a lot of time to think about it. So what you do is, when you first meet a client, whether they're the buyer or the seller, you have to explain the market conditions. You have to explain what to expect. You have to explain that before they find what they want. The earlier you condition and educate your buyer and your seller, the better it is. If you explain all of that before they find the house they want, now that they find the house they want a week, a month later, you can say, listen, we went through this before. I explained to you, the market that we're in right now, when you see something, we have to act quickly, and there's no room for negotiating right now. It's full price. And if there's no offers, you might be able to get it for full price. But if there are other offers, you're going to have to probably pay more. And explain that to them. Be straight up with them is the best I can tell you. That's how you would want to be treated. Don't surprise people. So I hope that helps you. Yep, I think we've got just about everything here. We talked about getting a copy. No, you can get, you'll get a copy of the presentation. You won't get a copy of the slides, but you can get a copy of the of the actual presentation by going into the resource center and watch this again and again and again, because it's right there for you to be able to watch again and again. So you won't get a copy of the slides though. That's it. Okay, have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much. I appreciate all that you are asking and the questions that you've had. Have a great day. Take care. My next session, by the way, is June 10, and that is building your email list. That is a great session, building your email marketing list on June 10. Take care. Have a great weekend and a great week. Bye-bye.